You ever open ChatGPT and realize you have like 17 open threads, all with different to-do lists, meals plans, podcast outlines, random thoughts at 2 a.m. And you're not sure which one actually has the real plan. Same. Today we're tackling how to actually stay organized while using AI, because the tools are great until they start making your life messier. So here's the deal. AI can do a lot. But if you're anything like us, your conversations with it start off super focused. And 3 weeks later, you're in a different tab, different tool, different vibe, and you can't remember what you told it in the first place. This week, Bert and I are digging into what it really looks like to use AI consistently and sanely. We're talking context windows, prompt drift, how to pick the right tool for the job, and what the heck to do when your chatbot forgets the project you've been feeding it for weeks. We'll share how we're each approaching organization, from cheat sheet to project setup to good old-fashioned asking, wait, what are we doing again? If you've ever felt like your brain is spread across 14 AI apps and none of them remember who you are, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. Hi, Bert.
Good Friday. Happy Friday, Juliana.
Happy Friday. Yeah, we're recording this on a Friday, which is weird because normally we don't record on Fridays, but this is a great way to end my week.
Yeah. Well, you can tell it's a Friday by my clothing choices.
I know you don't have on your black polo.
Yeah, it always weirded out my team when I'd show up with something crazy on Friday. And
I mean, I like it though. We kind of coordinate. I'm in like light blue, got a little dark blue
colorful
going on. Did not plan that.
I'll take it. Anyway, so I've got one I wanted to talk about today. Normally you leave these off, but I've got one I want to talk about. I have been waging war with the various AIs over their context windows.
So waging war, like, are you pitting them against each other, or is it you just... Okay, so like you're pit them against each other, or like also in my head, I picture you as like the central country, and you're just surrounded by a bunch of different AIs, and you're just slaying them, and they're moving in on you, and you drop kick one, and you stab another one.
This reminds me, I guess it's Risk or something along those lines. Or
yes, exactly. It's a great board game.
But no, in this case, it's I choose the AI that I'm going to use for a particular task based on the constraints of the AI. So if I'm going to really work on something long format that I know that it's gonna take me a while to work through it, I'm probably not going to choose Claude, even though I really like Claude. And if I'm going to, so typically at that point, I'm going to be using ChatGPT, or I'm going to be using Grok. And one of those two is going to allow me to talk to it as long as I want. What I found is that Grok will stay mostly focused for longer, and that ChatGPT is going to, once you hit a certain length of your conversation, it's going to start going a lot slower, which is kind of fascinating. But Claude, once you get to, I don't know, about where you're ready to, like, okay, we're really getting somewhere with this project, it says, hey, you need to start a new conversation.
No.
It's really frustrating.
So the conversations that you're having, though, are they more like creative conversations that you're having? So from like the solopreneur aspect of, hey, I want to talk through a podcast episode, as a great example that might apply to us.
Sure.
Or so where it's more language modeling.
It is not.
And having
So any of them are going to work for that. You are not going to run out of your context window for that. The places where I'm running into it is when I'm getting deep into architecture decisions and architecture conversations with AI, or if I'm working with coding blocks, because I can actually run AI agents within my VS Code, or if I'm using cursor. But if I'm in VS Code and I'm using one of the agents like Copilot, I can tell it to go do stuff and it'll do it, and that's cool. And it will check with me to make sure that it's going to do what it wants. But for me, a lot of the decision making with when I'm building something is, okay, why am I building it, as opposed to what specifically I'm telling it to do. So I want to go back and forth with it to make sure that I'm understanding the problem deeply well enough. Mm-hmm. And by the time that I get to a point that I'm okay, cool, let's go, Claude is at that point out of gas, and I have to start a new conversation. And it's like I'm calling into tech support or calling into the bank and customer service, and I've spent 10 minutes explaining what's going on and what my problem is. And then they ship me someone new.
Do you think that's really only applicable to deep architecture and code things? So I'm wondering if someone was using GPT to help organize ideas, or Claude to help organize ideas in writing a book. If they were to be like, hey, let's write a book, and now I have my own custom GPT or my own project set up that's about the book, do you think after, let's say, 3 months of giving it ideas and talking out possible plots and character development, it would forget
totally
parts of it?
It would drift is, I think, a more accurate term. And it's not so much a question of, so with the release in August of GPT-5, I think you could take one of the very thick Harry Potter books mm-hmm. and drop it in there, and it would have enough context to be able to contain the whole thing. Whether you should do that is an entirely different question. But I think that for ChatGPT and Grok, you can put huge amounts of context in it. The question is whether or not it's going to be able to, quote, remember what you're working with. And one of the really cool things about Claude right now is that Claude actually has now uncovered the ability for it to go back and check your previous conversations. I don't know if that's a paid only tool mm-hmm. or if it's just open to the public or not, but it's cool. Basically, I call it.
No, it does. It sounds really cool.
And say, remember we talked about this? And it goes, let me look.
I mean, I think about this from the ordinary person who says, how can I use AI to make my life better? And it's really, that's really the basis of this podcast for Accelerating Humans. It's about how does a person take technology as a whole and use it to better their life. So just from this understanding, if I were to be using AI in the everyday, where is the idea of, okay, I can trust what I've given it so far, or, oh no, it's drifted? Is it that my paid Claude subscription, where I have this project set up and it's been 3 months, like now it's going to drift and it's going to lose focus on what the initial point of the conversation was? Or is it how many paragraphs have you written to it? And that's going to be what the determinant is.
That's a really, really good question. And I think that this kind of comes down to the same problem that project managers and business analysts have dealt with since forever. If I have a really big project, where do I start? And it's sometimes you're addressing a huge project and it's almost too big to get your head wrapped around. And if you try to cram everything in there and get a good answer, the only AI that I've worked with that I think that I can do that successfully with on a regular basis is Notebook LM, which is a Google product, and it's a research tool. So I can take like huge bills from Congress, drop them in there and say, hey, tell me what's going on. Or I can take huge amounts of documentation from a bunch of disparate sources and ask it questions about it, or tell it to convert it to a podcast and then listen to them talk about it. And that's really cool. But for my purposes, that's not how I really want to engage with the data. For our purposes, the best practices that I've found are that I can start multiple small conversations about certain aspects of it, or I can create what I call cheat sheets. And the cheat sheet's pretty simple. You can actually have the AI make its own cheat sheet. You can say, hey, we've been talking about this for a little bit. and I would like to start a new conversation because I'm afraid that my context window's running out, or we're starting to get lower performance, or we have some drift. And what you do is it's basically you're making notes for your AI to start from. And that helps it a lot.
Well, I also think that what I'm finding with these AI tools and just talking to people in general, I was out with some friends and we couldn't remember the name of something. Yeah. And me, as I guess a millennial, I was like, oh, let's Google it. And the person there, who was Gen Z, said, oh, let me ask ChatGPT.
Cool.
No, my head still goes, okay, let me ask Google because I'm going to get better search results. I can go in.
Sure.
Just very interesting. Maybe another time we can dive into that. But ChatGPT couldn't answer it. But now I'm thinking she had the chat sheet. It was the way that it was just being described, and we didn't have enough context and how it was prompted. But the name of something we were looking for was the name of a dance and what it was looking for. But in my mind, I'm thinking, oh no, now you have this separate conversation in your ChatGPT. And what does your ChatGPT app look like when you open it up? And are there just 200, 300, 400 different conversations? Because anytime you have a question, you open it up, like how we have the multiple tabs of Google. Do you just have multiple tabs of this AI? And how are you organizing it all? Because again, I think that people are turning to these different types of AI programs. So, if you are in a Microsoft environment and you're using their tools, when you're going in and asking that basic question, and then you're building off of it, are you then taking that information and putting it in a project management tool? Are you taking that and putting it in a different document? Are you putting that into a specific project? How are you staying organized?
Well, so that's a really, really good question. And one of the things that I like about, one of the cool tools that I like about, and I'm actually opening it up to make sure that I'm speaking correctly on this. Claude and ChatGPT both have projects. So often I'll organize my work into projects so that there's a bit of a silo around them. And that allows me to give specific instruction on what the project is. So I've got one that I'm looking at right now is I made a bunch of family cartoons for my little boys. And I used a prompt to generate those Studio Chibi sort of Ghibli sort of images of them driving garbage trucks with the anthropogenic cats and the rainbow striped cheetah, which is named Rainy, who is a recurrent character in their little world. And so we were able to make their own cartoons that had multiple panels. And so I keep that kind of separate from my work because I'm not sure that I want that popping up in the normal conversations, if you would. But at the same time, I can add specific files to it, and I can give specific instructions to it, and I can say, this is how this is organized. This is what things should look like. And it keeps it together. So projects within ChatGPT, within Claude, within whatever AI you're using really will help you with organization. And you can we had talked about in one of our previous episodes, how to train your robot, about what you can do to train it to think like you and to talk like you in the way that you want it to. You can add specific instructions for each of those projects as well, which is really neat. But so I've got my trained robot, and I have it working with me primarily with coding. And it just, at a certain point, it's just, man, that's a lot. So it's changed the way that I structure the repositories I'm working with.
Okay. So what are you doing though? So what are your actual action steps? So if there is someone else who is using that to figure out code, how can they copy what you're doing? Because we know it works.
Well, it works. I don't know if it's the best way, but this is one of those. This is changing so fast. What I want it to do is I want it to just sit within whatever development environment I'm working with and just do things and pick up task and run down the task and do them. But I want to have more narrative back and forth, and I want to make sure stuff fits better. So what I'm finding is for the architectural decisions and for some of the other components of it, I'm pulling it out and working with, say, a code specific Claude or GPT. And so what I've done is I've written I've actually had it write a Python script that'll pull the README for the repository, and it'll pull the file tree for it, and it will pull the architectural decision records that I have for it, as well as some other relevant information. So my API endpoints and some other stuff that is useful for it, depending on which language I'm working in. And it will put it into either a zipped file that I can then use, but Claude, since it doesn't accept the zips, I've also got it as a series of files that can be added, or a single file that's pretty big. And I can drop that into the beginning of a conversation. And if it says, hey, you're out of room, you just start a new one, you drop this in, and it picks up basically where you left off.
So for people who don't speak tech,
right? Yeah.
And to make things a little more digestible, let's use an example of someone who is running their business.
Sure.
And they're using an AI tool to help them with social media ideas.
Okay.
So you set up a project, or you set up and you give the guidelines. This is my company's name. We'll use Accelerating Humans. So Accelerating Humans is our name. And this is what our mission statement is about.
Sure.
And these are transcripts of our podcast episodes so that you understand the way we talk. Now, I want you to create 10 reels, 10 ideas for reels that, is based on these hooks. And it gives you the 10 ideas. And you go, okay, now I don't want it to only be talking heads, right?
Sure.
And it gives you your next thing and your next thing and your next thing. So now we've gone through maybe 15 iterations and we've got 10 ideas that we like.
Mm-hmm.
We go and we execute them. We post it to our social media. And now I want to come back and get 10 more real ideas. And now this goes on for a course of 3 months.
Sure.
So over 3 months, I've got 120 ideas for reels. And in this time, I'm giving it feedback going, that's not a good hook. A good hook is, and I describe what a good hook is.
Yeah.
Or I say, I just attended this webinar and this person talked about how you need to do, a specific call to action that is like this. And you're giving it feedback throughout the time. How is that? And then maybe you go off on tangents.
No.
And then maybe you go like, hey, in this 3 months, you're giving it more information. You're now going off on a tangent about something else. So now, again, you've got 3 months worth of ideas of conversations, and you want to go back and reference this, but you can't find it. Or things might drift a little bit. So in this type of scenario, how do you organize that GPT so that it doesn't drift, so that it stays concise, and you're basing it off of all the information that you're giving it feedback on?
This is perfect, and it's going to happen to a lot of people. The thing is, with the development, I used to be able to go put a hands on somebody, say, where's my senior developer that wrote this thing? And if I am using this, if I'm moving the knowledge and some of the code creation over to the GPT, it becomes a bit of a black box. So there's not a human brain that I can go and say, hey, tell me about this anymore. And you always run into times where that person has left the company, they got sick, they forgot, whatever. I think that this is one of the reasons I love documentation so much. One of the reasons I love Notion so much is that I can take something, put it into a format that is then consumable later. And what I would probably do is, I would first talk to it and say, hey, give me what we've talked about and give me a cheat sheet that you will use for yourself. And I will then save that somewhere make a file out of it, keep it in documentation. If you use Notion, I'd create a Notion page for it. If you use OneNote, use OneNote. If you're using Google Docs, use that. And I would probably create a project that is going to be within my GPT or within Claude or whatever you're using, and specifically have this is the project, this is what this is about. And I might start multiple conversations in there. Like after a certain amount of time, I would ask the first one to kind of close out and give it the prompt to start back over, refresh the context. What you'll find a lot of times is if you've run it for a long period of time, it'll start running progressively slower because it has more that it has to parse through and more history. So that becomes particularly evident in ChatGPT, becomes very evident in Grok as well. Less evident in Claude because they've made the trade-off, and they basically say, hey, you need to start a new one because they decide they want to keep the quality and the response snappiness up to a certain level. So they've specifically cut it to say that you need to start a new chat, even though it means that you're going to have to start over.
I almost think that when people talk about are robots going to rule the world, I do think that this is a very good case of where humans win in this element so yes, a human is not maybe going to be able to recall the Instagram idea you had from 3 months ago,
Sure.
But your human who is coding or creating the code and sitting there for a couple of hours is going to remember what was built on, is going to be able to analyze it. If you have a social media marketer who is very organized, they're going to have all these notes somewhere where they can refer back to. So, I mean, AI is great, but I do think this is score one for the humans.
Well, absolutely. 100% agree with you. I think that as the technology improves, that might change. But right now, every time you talk to a new AI, it's like talking to a new one, totally new one. It's bringing a new intern, and then you start from scratch. So I mean, I can give the intern read this pamphlet and then come back and talk to me. That's basically what I'm doing. But at the same time, they don't have all of the context that person that's worked with you for 3 months does, and that surprises a lot of people because people anthropomorphize these things all the time. They try to think of the GPTs as individuals that they can chat with, but it's just a computer.
It is. And it's a computer that is tailoring to things that you like. So I think a great example is if we go back to this, not that yours isn't a real world example, but for people who don't speak tech, the idea of I tell my GPT the type of hooks that I like, and now I've used that for a year, and all my hooks sound the same, or I'm not getting in or updating it with what's new and what's actually going to be value add on social media with my hooks, because it is being based off of what my mind is saying versus that human interaction of, if you're working with a coder who's building the code, they might say, oh, actually, there's a way that we can do this better. There's a way that we can do this more efficiently after building upon certain codes or understanding the architecture.
Or when I tried that before it broke.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's a huge one though.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And I've had this trying to do certain coding things exactly where I'm like, no, give me the updated code. And I get the whole updated code. And then I get the same error as I did, 10 error fixes ago. And you go, what the hell?
Because it forgot.
I've dropped.
Makes me crazy.
As a born and raised New Yorker, I've dropped the F-bomb with all of my AI agents.
I'm not a New Yorker, but I've also at about 2 or 3 in the morning, maybe used some choice language with them.
No, I've literally done explicit you !
Yeah. And this is one of the reasons I'm glad that it drops context, because bring in the new bot. I fired Grok once because it worked me into a corner I didn't like, and I was, it was doing great, doing great, doing great. And then it started forgetting stuff. And I think I just tried to push it a little bit too far. And then I had to work myself out of that corner with, going back and doing some old manual debugging, which is not fun. And then,
Yeah.
I think Claude got me out of that one, got me back to a working tool. But we had something
Yeah.
that was working and then we broke it. And I swear it's like, back in the day, we used to have the floppy disks and we'd save our crap all the time. And you could save all these neurotic behavior. And I'm always clicking save. And then I'd have a thumb drive. I'd save to the thumb drive and the floppy disk in case one became corrupted.
Yep.
And now everybody's spoiled.
So I think, though, if we were to wrap this conversation up
Sure.
into a nice, pretty bow, nice, pretty box, action items. I think big action items for people is one, go through whatever tool it is you use, whatever AI tool you use, and clean up your miscellaneous questions and
Sure.
your miscellaneous chats. I think
Organize.
that's a huge one, and it's like cleaning the inbox. When email first started, if you didn't, when you have a new inbox, if you don't delete it or file it from the very beginning, it's gonna wreak havoc. And then I think step 2 is to go through what you currently have and make the backup on digital paper. So take your code, put it where it needs to go, take your brand guidelines that you're figuring out, put that in a Word doc, save that information, and then go back into your AI tool and attach that information, again, like brand guidelines, into your specific project or your custom, gem or GPT
Yeah.
or whatever you're using to continuously update, just as a way to keep yourself organized and a way to have efficiency. So if a year from now, as a small business owner, you need to pivot, you need to change the way you're talking, you need to change your highlights, you need to change your goals, you don't have to go in and say, okay, this is what I want you to do now. You can update your document, delete the old one, and reattach the new one.
Yeah. And I think that living, so the living documentation. So as your project evolves, it's naturally going to evolve as it adds complexity. Keep it organized, like you say, like an email inbox. So sort your projects, make sure that they go where they're supposed to go, and then just keep that documentation. And that way you're less likely to forget, and you're less likely to run into this drift that you get with AI sometimes, where you had made what you thought was a decision, or you had fixed something, and then it turns out that it forgot that you did, and you have to work yourself through the same problem again.
Yeah.
Once you've worked with AI any amount of time, this is going to happen to you. Promise you, it is going to happen to you.
Absolutely. All right, Bert, I'm guilty of having some weird miscellaneous chats. I need to take my own advice.
Rainy the rainbow striped cheetah might start working its way into your other chat. I don't know. I don't. The kids stuff is fun, the cartoon family scenes, but at the same time, it's just flights of fancy sometimes shouldn't be in my business documents.
Yeah, I get it. Well, I guess it's time for me to go organized.
Good times. Happy
All
Friday.
right, till next time. Goodbye. Hey guys, this is Juliana here. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Accelerating Humans. We are so grateful for all your comments, all your interactions, all your shares to friends and colleagues. If you'd like to reach out to Bert or myself, you can always do so at hello@acceleratinghumans.com. And of course, on our website, we have all of our show notes and all of our downloads from today's episodes and all of our previous episodes. You ever open ChatGPT and realize you have 17 open threads, all with different to-do lists, meals plans, podcast outlines, random thoughts at 2 a.m. You're not sure which one actually has the real plan. Same. Today we're tackling how to actually stay organized while using AI, because the tools are great until they start making your life messier. So here's the deal. AI can do a lot. But if you're anything like us, your conversations with it start off super focused. And 3 weeks later, you're in a different tab, different tool, different vibe, and you can't remember what you told it in the first place. This week, Bert and I are digging into what it really looks like to use AI consistently and sanely. We're talking context windows, prompt drift, how to pick the right tool for the job, and what the heck to do when your chatbot forgets the project you've been feeding it for weeks. We'll share how we're each approaching organization, from cheat sheet to project setup to good old-fashioned asking, wait, what are we doing again? If you've ever felt like your brain is spread across 14 AI apps and none of them remember who you are, this episode is for you. So let's get into it.